What is going on, everyone? This is Dr. J. Taylor Jacobs, and I'm back with SPD911, and I'm very excited because the superstar of the show is back, Sharon Green Golden. We're talking about the things that we wish we knew before starting SPD. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time asking this great SPD legend all the questions I know you want to ask. Let's go. This show is all about tracking the toughest challenges in sterile processing. Is that we live in a world where shadowing is considered training.
SPD911, we stand together.
You're not successful if you work in a 9 to 5. Like,
The tears, raw and real, we face the fight, supporting each other, night and daylight.
Welcome back to SPD 911. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Taylor Jacobs. We are your emergency show every week talking about the things that you really want to talk about. You can get access to our community to ask us questions at SPD911.com. You can go to SPD911.com and get access to the great Sharon Green Golden and ask the questions that will end up on the show if they are, if it is a question that we believe that everyone will be able to follow and mull around. But here's my other part I want to talk about. I want to talk about how excited I am to know that SGG is back. You know, if you're newer to the show, SGG is one of the goats of sterile processing. Former president of ISHM. She's on all the international boards, a part of Amy Standards. She's our golden goose that wears red boots. And we've been working her like a slave on Turkey Day.
Yeah.
Traveling all over the country, and she's there visiting her family in Cali. What's going on, SGG?
Listen, I came to Cali to get warm, and it rained and it was cold every day until Friday, and then I rode through the desert. So I'm here.
You brought the winter storm.
Listen, apparently it came with me. It got warmer on the East Coast while I was over here. Now it's cold back on the East Coast, and it's warming up over here. But yes, I have the ability to visit with my baby girl for a couple of days. She's at work. I'm here in her house doing a podcast, but I'm happy to be back.
Well, so what have you been up to? You've been traveling a bit, seeing sights and things.
So, it is always amazing to go back into the hospital when you figure that I went every day to the hospital to an SPD for over 35 years. And then these last 2 years, it'll be 2 years on Friday, technically. I retired on the 29th of February in 24, that I stepped out of the SPD and did not go back except for a few times. I've been hospital in Chicago, and I've done some consultations in hospitals, but I am always in awe when I go into a hospital to see what they're doing, and either how well they may be advanced in some areas, that being maybe technology and equipment, and how far behind we are on standards and compliance, how we just kind of let that go. But we got to wash a decontaminator. We're singing praises to the boroscope, but we're not using it. We have people that we aren't really maybe putting in areas where they're best needed, but we have a new a low temperature sterilizer. So things haven't evolved, I guess, as well as I thought they would have, seeing as how we now have AI helping us and we have all this technology, and we should be moving forward. It's kind of like we're a little stagnant. And so I think that our podcast, if it only helps one person, we've done a good job. But I think from hearing other people talk about it, it does help them to move forward in what it is they have to do. And Dr. Jake, as I am learning, because I am still a learner, what I did find was what we call operational blindness. And so we have operational blindness going on. We think we got it right, we're doing stuff, but we can't see what's going on over to the right at all. We don't even see that. We come in every day and we move forward, and the same issue is happening over in the right corner that we should have seen because it's there. But we are operating. We are getting the cases done. And our biggest thing that I've been hearing from around the country is that, well, we're doing our cases. We're not delaying no cases. But if you aren't processing correctly, if the instruments weren't processed according to the IFU, you may have not delayed the case, but you don't know what you did to that patient, because the real fact, reality, and I think about uh, reality and true facts and not fake news, is that we don't know all of the people we have impacted with infections and problems. They don't all come back to the operating room. Some of them are cleared and fixed through their doctor's office and through a lot of antibiotic treatment. Some people get better on their own. They had a little infection and it just went away. You don't hear about all of those. And so we don't get to do the research on what happened or what could have happened to impact that patient's um, surgery, visit to the hospital. Not that it has to always have anything to do with SPD. You all know me. This is in general. But we don't want to be a part of anything that is bad.
That's right.
We want to make sure that our operations are not in the dark, that we have our eyes wide open, that we are looking at all times, and that we are trying to be consistently committed to being audit ready every day.
And I think you actually said a lot of good nuggets, learning nuggets in there, good observation nuggets. And one thing that got me to point out before we even, as you all have not noticed, the show has started. She started teaching, in case you didn't notice. But just how operationally blind facilities are with 10, 20, 30, 40-year-old vets running SPD. And let's talk about, you're seeing it live in the flesh yourself with your own eyes, and being a compliance gal, someone who loves to operate by the book. What is that really notating to you? Because you have hot systems that are certified, they have the things, but there are still those elements that are missing, technology, and as you mentioned, all the works of everything, but still are lacking in those areas. What is your biggest concern as you are peeking into all types of hospital systems and ASCs?
I think the thing that my eyes have been opened up to recently is that we may know a standard, or we may know what it means to be compliance wise. We are cherry picking. That's the word I want to use. We are cherry picking what we want to fix in hopes that whenever anyone comes in, the first thing they see is you see a nice green tree with some cherries hanging off of it. You don't see the ones that are rotting on the back end, because we kind of steer you away from that. But if you have a true inspector, they're going to go to the back of the tree. I expect the front of the tree to look good. I'm going around to the back of the tree to see what's actually going on. So in SPD, they have gotten, in general, they understand that first impressions are lasting, but they don't always work towards making sure that the first impression is within standard. When I walk into a storage area, I'm automatically looking for cleanliness. I'm looking for what the temperature is. I'm looking to see how far the rack is off the wall. Yes, I'm looking to see how far you are up off the floor. I'm looking to see if the bottom rack is covered. I'm looking to see if there's dust on the shelves. But I'm also looking to see if you're FIFOing. Now, FIFO, first in, first out, is something everybody automatically, Dr. Jake says, yes, we're doing it. Yes. They tell you the same thing at the grocery store, but if you go get a can of peas off the store, you better look at the date, because I guarantee you, unless they got a good team, that the peas that you're pulling off the front weren't FIFO necessarily. Because if you got someone like me at the grocery store, I pulled everything from 2027 up to the front because I was trying to make sure I got the P's that weren't going to expire in March of 26. So unless you're always rotating those shelves, unless when someone is putting something on the shelf, cognizant of the fact that they must be sure the first tray in goes to the top, so it's the first tray that comes out, they're not FIFOing. But somewhere along the way, and I'm going to use it, with their blindness, that person thought they were doing right. And because when you looked at the shelf, it looked nice and neat, you said, yes, we're FIFOing. And then a person like me comes in and finds a tray on the bottom from 2021, and the tray on the top is from yesterday. That tells me that the human factor really is not aware of what it is, what it means to do FIFO. But FIFO is important because if we keep using the same instruments over and over, there's sets that never get used. So you're wearing out some sets and not using other sets. And if these other sets can sit on the shelf for years and not be used, then that means we have another issue. We need to take these off, and maybe we have instruments to put other trays up. So it's just a matter of being able to see with new eyes what really is happening. We're working towards an end, Dr. J. Every day in general, we're going in saying, I need to get these trays processed. I need to get these trays on the shelf. And by any means necessary, get it up there, get it on there, and let's move on to the next day. But somewhere along the line, we've got to become compliant within the standards, and we've got to say, let's do it right. And let's do it right all the time. Because if you train me to do it right all of the time, you will not have to run and jump through hoops when your survey window comes up. And that is what we have going on. I'm in the survey window. They coming within the next 6 months. Now you try to train me to do what I should have been doing all the time, and you're not gonna be able to train me on everything. You may get me through one or two things, but you're not gonna cover everything because I'm a human factor, and I'm not gonna be receiving and comprehending everything you're telling me all of a sudden. When we had technically from the last survey to this survey 3 years. You had 3 years to make sure I did it right every day, all day, every day, all day. But you chose to wait until the last 6 months. Now you're going to beat it into my head. I'm not going to do it. I may remember on Monday, the survey has come on Tuesday. I already forgot. And I'm back to my old habit because it takes time to learn a habit. And that's what we actually have in sterile processing with some of our evidence-based processes. They are habits. FIFO is one of them. Anytime I go to the shelf, I stand there and make sure the tray I'm putting on the shelf goes to the bottom and the tray that was already there comes to the top. But that takes time. And guess what? We feel like we don't have time. And I'm saying you have time to do it right. Because if I have to come behind you to fix the shelf, you just took away some things I could have been doing. Now I'm trying to fix the shelf because I want it to be right. Or Dr. Jack, you say, Sharon, what are you doing? You just had 2 trays to put on the shelf. Well, everything was out of order. So now I'm fixing the shelf. I've created another job to do, which if we do evidence-based, we shouldn't have to do that. And I think that I felt as much as we have our podcasts, all these other podcasts out, all these other subject matter experts are talking, they're writing, they're doing shows. They're actually still working in hospitals, and we haven't fixed this. And to me, that's a problem.
And I think that's kind of why we exist, right?
Mhm.
We exist to be, as we call it, a bridge builder, a
Yeah.
bridge in between the clinical and the operational side. And as you've been able to notice in traveling and doing these assessments and consultations, um, a lot of leaders are actually raised in hospital systems for a while. You have some hospital systems, and that's the only system that they know.
Right.
And so, what we're saying is, a lot of leaders, it's honestly not your fault. Operational blindness doesn't start with you per se as the leader. It starts with the system that you all are operating on, and those that system or those quote unquote standards, if you will, can't just be in a book. We can't just say, "Oh, we're operating based on standards." Okay, what standard and how are you operating it based on that standard? Those are things that have to be bred into um, your organization and where you have it. So I think that's very important dynamic to hear from you, SGG. It's kind of like it's fascinating to see even you with the amount of experience that you have growing and expanding and
Hmm.
seeing you know even to your last point, we have all of these isms and sayings that everyone has and everyone on podcasts are writing about it and doing those things, but the problem is still there.
Right.
Some of the issues that we were struggling with, you know 30, 40 years ago, we're still struggling with it today. Some of those things with better technology and better, and you've been in all the phases. So hearing your story about you being frustrated about we still talking about this
Hmm. Yeah.
is definitely a big one in that process. So yeah, we're jumping in today's show, in today's episode, and as you all see, when SGG looks down, she's looking at her notes, y'all. She's looking at her
Hmm.
notes, y'all, and making sure that we good. But it kind of takes me right to our first question that we actually have here. And it's a scenario when someone is saying, it feels like every tray is stat, every call is urgent, nothing feels prioritized. And even giving the OR, the upstairs, the notice and the huddles with letting us know, what the urgent, like what is priority and what is not. Everybody says that their surgery or their thing is priority. So in the space of that, the question that we have for you right now, SGG, is why does everything feel like an emergency in some departments, specifically sterile processing?
Uh, so I will start off by saying that that is a part truth and part fake news. Um,
It's
everything
good.
is not stat. I worked for 35 years. Yes, I had some stat trays. Stat means they need it right away, right now.
Mhm.
That's not technically the norm in SPD. We need it right now, every day. That's what goes on. You have a stat tray for several reasons. One reason may be that, yes, the doctor requested something and the case is already going and a vendor had to bring it in. That may be one. Number two, you had a case that was going on and we did not do our due diligence and read the schedule, and or the preference card was not correct and the tray was not put up because we don't have any organization as to what is priority in our department. Therefore, we looked up the tray is unsterile and now it becomes a stat. The word stat means right away. And the problem with stat is technically we can't do stat. Stat puts you into another ball game. It's called immediate use steam sterilization. And immediate use steam sterilization is supposed to be done only when it is absolutely positively necessary because your patient is dying. The fact that the doctor forgot to order the instrument, the fact that we didn't do our due diligence and put the tray together is not a stat. And I have been in hospitals where we do 50, 60 cases a day. And I can count in a week how many true stats we had. Now, we may be running around SPD trying to get instruments processed and into the sterilizer, be it low temperature or steam sterilizer, because we didn't prepare ourselves. But that is a human factor management problem. That's a
Mm.
human factor management problem. That has nothing to do with the
Mm.
OR. Leave them out. In hospitals today, most of us, we have boards in our SPD. I don't know if you remember seeing them, Dr. Jake, that tells us all the cases going on. We got Epic. We got all these technology that gives me the schedule the day before. I have schedules 2 weeks before. I know they're getting ready to do a special craniotomy case on March the 15th. I knew this on February the 15th.
That's right.
I knew what was coming in. It was my job as manager to keep calling and saying, where are these instruments? When are they coming? You know, we got the case. I want them at least 24 hours before the case. If not, 2 weeks before the case. Let me process it and have it sitting here ready. But that's human factor and management. You have to manage those issues. It's about being able to read a schedule and know what's actually going on. You have a GYN case where they're going to need a hysterectomy tray, a DNC tray, a laser tray, but the preference card only asks for DNC. Well, we have to train our team members to be able to ask questions. This is a hysterectomy, DNC, saphenophorectomy, laser case, and all they want is a DNC tray. I want to know how they're going to do the other part of the case with just the DNC. We know this the day before, not after they roll into the room. And now we're running around trying to find the laser tray, the hysterectomy tray. It doesn't make sense when we should have known this when we were picking the case. So preparation and management of your team members and teaching. One thing that you teach us all the time, Dr. J, being aware of what you're supposed to do in real time, not hindsight. We cannot do SPD hindsight. We have to do SPD real time. And so SPD real time means that I'm looking, somebody is paying attention to what is going on so that we don't have these emergencies, because our hands are tied on emergencies. I can only go so fast on an emergency, Dr. Jake. I can't clean fast. I can't process fast. So it's not going to be fast. You're not going to get it. And the end result is that a patient either has their case delayed, canceled, or held, or they're on the table when we find out, and now they're getting anesthesia while we are running around trying to do emergency. So stat is a word that people we throw out in questions. I don't even remember the last time I heard stat in an actual SPD department. Back in the day, we say stat all day long. We've stopped. In fact, some of the new breed will tell you they don't know what stat means. You say, I need to trace stat, Dr. Jake. They just look at you. What they mean? What they mean? You know, so the bottom line is that it is, I guess, in a way, an oxymoron, stat, emergency. The emergency is that we did not prepare ourselves to be ready for these surgical cases today. We had trays that we didn't put in priority. Priority setting is most important. You have to have priority setting. You have to say, these are the trays that will be done regardless. Every time you see, and I like to use this one, a Synthes small frag tray, you will process it. We're not waiting for a case. These cases come in on emergencies. When someone gets hit in a car, there's a car accident, someone falls off of a horse, they break their leg, someone is running, they hurt themselves. These are emergent cases where these are the trays they're going to pull. So you don't let them sit on the rack. I think that we've gotten away from what is priority and what isn't, and we're so busy spinning in a circle. I was sharing with somebody, it's not about clearing the rack. Now, back in the day, back in 1985, yes, we wanted to clear the rack, but we weren't doing but 40 cases a week. We could clear the rack. And out of them 40 cases, only 2 of them was total joints. Nowadays, you're doing total joints 5 days a week. You're doing backs, neuro backs, you're doing cranies, you're doing hips, you're doing knees, you're doing shoulders, you're doing wrists, you're doing ankles. You cannot clear the rack, but you can have the priority trays processed. Therefore, you do not have an emergent situation by staying ahead, looking at the schedule, meeting with the OR on a regular basis, doing what we call forecasting, where we meet on a Thursday and we forecast 2 weeks out what we're going to need, how we're going to need it, when we're going to need it, so that we can work on making sure we have it and we don't have to say stat. So if you're in a department where you all are running around and you want to say, Miss Golden, but at my hospital we do stat every day, that is a management problem. Management of not the washer decontaminator, not the sterilizer. It is a problem with management of the human factor and information.
Listening to this question and listening to you respond in SGG fashion. It reminds me of a story, SGG, of my grandfather. And the story of my grandfather, he always spoke in isms, and it used to make me so angry because he never gave a straight response. Come to find out, he's teaching me some principles that the greatest teacher of all taught. And he was teaching me. I forget where we were, but we were walking every morning. He and I, we would go for a walk. This is probably why till this day I wake up early, handle my business in the morning. And what he stated was, we were walking maybe around, we had to get up around 5:30, 5:45, because I remember we had to be dressed and out the door by 7 o'clock every morning, no matter what. So even walking was all on the timer. So we were behind. He would keep us up, but he was, I was complaining about, honestly, I was complaining about how I felt like my mother, or I was either my mother or my dad. Or my dad always forgot something. Always forgot. Oh, like he always does this. He's just always, he doesn't care, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And my grandfather, he kind of just looked at me and he said, always, huh? I said, yes, sir. He always does it. And it frustrates me and makes me mad. And what my grandfather figured out was I knew that my granddad didn't really like my dad. I'm just being honest. Being honest. I knew he didn't like my dad. He was my bonus mom's, father, but this is a grandfather that raised me like I was his own. Because I knew that he didn't really like him, it was easier for me to come and complain about my father to my granddad, because I knew that I would probably get food or, it was a form of manipulation. It really, really was. And how he checked me, SGG, it was the most beautiful thing. So we walking, and he always walked with a compass. And he got the compass, and then he had a magnet in his hand right here, but he held the compass like this. And he was like, son, what does the compass say? He was like, and then we were walking north. He showed me north, and it worked perfectly. And he put it in his hand, and then that cursor, that little cursor did this right here, right? And it was literally something like this. It's literally something like this. If you're watching, if you're listening to it, you're not watching the video, you can't see it. But this is a compass that says God's path, right? It looks just like this. And then the arrow every time just went toward, like it just zipped toward. And he said, grandson, he said, always be leery of someone who tells you always.
Yes.
Because they're just like this compass. You don't see the magnet of what they're trying to pull your attention toward. So if you're looking at this compass and you're seeing that this side says north, you don't realize that I have a magnet in my hand. He was like, someone coming to you saying always, it's like someone with a magnet. They're manipulating you to do it. And he said, son, life isn't a straight line. He was like, it's a series of sometimes maybes and oopsies. And people are sometimes brave, they are sometimes selfish, they sometimes forget, and they're sometimes brilliant. And if you listen to the always talkers, you'll end up living a very small and a very angry world. Because when someone points you to someone's um, uh, shortcomings and state always, they're trying to program in your mind to only see the always of what you want me to see and not the other stuff that the person does well. So I say that to say to the person that, that mentioned always, SGG did a beautiful job talking about SPD stuff. But I would be careful using the word always, because with me as a leader, after my grandfather taught me that, I'm always trying to find out what is your intention with coming to me as a leader and saying this is always the case, and what are you really trying to point toward, and figuring that out. And what I've noticed, SGG, is that always is never always.
True.
Which is why I loved how you answered it. You was like, it's a bit of fake news, a bit of
Yeah.
truth, and it's that always factor.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a reoccurring theme that comes up, that is okay.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean it's an always thing. If you always feel that way, either you're not prepared yourself, or like SGG said, your management team, y'all are not doing a good job prepping. And you
Right.
need to do a better job of preparing for the next day. And this is the issue that many humans have in general. For an example, this is very, 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 very simple. We all know that one day, and as we get older, our bodies change. We all know that. We know
Yes.
the day is coming. You feel it. You've seen it with your grandma. You've seen it
Mhm.
with your daddy. You've seen it with your mama. You've seen it with everybody. You know that that day is coming, a day where all of the things that you've done to your body will meet the day where your body is going to feel it. And you don't know what happened. So if I know that that day is coming, I'm going to prepare for it while I'm young so that it can carry me when I am older. SGG in all her wonderful glory, I call her, I'm more worried about her when she travels than she is worried. And she said, baby, I do this. I'm fine. I got this. I know what to do. I know where to go. I know where to be. And I just hope that I am able to move around like that from what I am doing today as I mature and I gain some more wisdom and gray hairs on my head. But I'm saying
Yes.
this to say this. Everyone, when you're going to work, there is no, when we get here, we can finally breathe. When I
Right.
understand that there won't be reprieve while I'm at work, I'm going to come to work prepared to work. The issue is a lot of us are winding up to get to work at work, and then you're winding down to get home at work. And so,
Getting ready. That's called getting ready. They
as
they spend
SGG says, her
they
mama say,
spend getting ready. What are you doing? I'm getting ready for bed. She said, "What do
yeah,
you have to do to get ready to
that's
get
right.
in the bed? Get in
That's
the
right.
bed."
That's
So
right.
you're saying something that is true, is that we've come to a point in some, this is in general, I like to keep saying
Some,
that so nobody write me a letter. Um, uh, we like to say that every day something is wrong, and that's not true. Um, I worked in the SPD where every day something was not wrong. It is all about preparation. It's all about knowing what you're supposed to do and doing it. And we found as we've grown, forecasting for surgeries keeps us out of having to say, where is the tray? We knew, like I said, we knew 2 weeks ago we had an ankle case coming that was going to need a special ankle tray. Why is it that it's today 7:30 and we running around looking for the ankle tray? Why? That is a human factor management problem. And it's a people process, because the tray had nothing. It can't do anything but be there once some human being brings it or delivers it. So I just think that yes, we had days where we had a lot of loaner trays. We had days where we had a lot of regular trays. We had days where we had work to do, Dr. Jake. But what always concerned me was somehow people thought they came to work not to work. They were frustrated because there was
right.
work. And so the day shift comes in and they say, oh my God, what did the night shift do? That's not the question. The question is, what do I need to put on my table and start processing?
That's right.
Not what did the night shift do, because that's not in your wheelhouse right now. You came here to work, and I really realized that after I kept coming in, and people, my team would say, Miss Golden, did you see what evenings would say, did you see what day shift didn't do? And I say, well, it's on the priority list, do it. But they didn't know that's not your problem. Your problem is now that you see it, you do it. Because the bottom line is we're going to need this trade tomorrow, or we may need to trade later tonight. And you came to work to work. The day that you come to work and there's no work, I need to send you home.
That's right.
You know, so
That's right.
to see my team finally open their eyes, it's like a light bulb that went off in their head, that they started realizing, well, yeah, if there's no work, we go home and use our PTO. She's not going to keep all of us here to do 3 trades. So the fact that there's work to be done, the fact that we can justify the work to be done by the fact that they're doing more and more cases. The standard at the hospital was they didn't do any cases after 7 p.m. But if it was Dr. Booty Boo, he could put on as many cases as he wanted. So he could work all the way up to midnight. Therefore, the ball game changed, because now we had these trays that should have been up sterile. They're no longer sterile. They're still being cleaned and processed, because the system allowed Dr. Booty Boo to skew the rule. But at the end of the day, we need these trays for tomorrow. So it's night shift's job to make sure that those laparoscopic trays get put up as a priority, because you know the same Dr. Booty Boo is coming with the same issue. He's going to find some appendectomies. He's going to find some gallbladders. I used to ask the doctors, do you have some people that's standing in a corner and you say, I'll do 2 gallbladders for the price of 1? Where did you find all these gallbladders at this time? Because I felt that where I worked at, we did the most gallbladder surgery of any place I'd ever been. And I still have mine. I was like, you're not just taking people randomly. Where do you find them? But the bottom line was, our job was to have the trays ready. Our job was to have the trays ready. And so each shift came in. My thing to them was, here's the priority list. These are the trays we need to have done. Then after you do the priority, this is the second line. These are the trays you work on, because you've done all the priorities. And these trays right, you find that we almost finished. These are the trays that you work on. So we won't have any in quotation marks stat, because we won't come into a stat situation. But that's all in management. And I think that when we hear certain things, Dr. J, we have you can't change a person's perception. We perceive that we have stats every day, but when we do data collection and actually start notating with data, you will find that it's fake news. You'll find out, oh my goodness, we only had an emergent issue once this week. And not only did we only have it once this week, it was because the physician ordered the tray late. Not because SPD didn't process the tray. That's a different emergent situation. So being able to collect data, team members who are listening, and to differentiate what the reason is, helps you to have reality and true facts and not fake news.
Well, you heard it here first. No more fake news. Okay.
Stop saying you
No
got
more
stat
fake
all day
news.
long. That's not true.
That's not true. But finding out what is true, then you can actually solve that issue versus
Yes.
saying stat all the time. The next question that we have for you right here is a scenario, SGG, where a tech gets corrected for something they were never clearly taught. That's what they're saying. How are you supposed to know what's most important when everything feels urgent, especially when you know that you haven't been fully taught? I have something I have to say about this, but I'll let you go first. It has nothing to do with them.
I think that, well, I know when you are a new tech, hopefully you're in a institution, a company that believes in orientation. Orientation is a time that you take to learn what it is that you need to know and to be evaluated on what you already know. So in sterile processing, where I can only speak for what I know and have seen, we had an orientation schedule, we had an orientation list, we had an orientation checklist. I, with a preceptor who I assigned to every new person, would say, check them off when they have completed knowing the SOP, when they have completed the competency. Now, it's your job as the person that's new to say, I still don't understand what I'm doing. I need more
Oh,
time.
that's good. That's
I need
good.
more time. That's your job. When you're so happy to sign off and say, yes, yes, yeah, I understand, I understand, I understand, you set yourself up for failure down the road.
That's right.
When I look at it and say, well, Dr. Jenkins says here you were deemed competent on February the 15th. You signed and said you knew what you were doing. What do you mean now that the tray was wrong and I've got to bring you in and counsel you and they want me to write you up to say, y'all didn't give me enough time to learn? No, you had enough time and you had the ability to articulate, I'm not ready. I don't know. Please don't sign me. I'm not gonna sign this because I still don't understand. I still don't understand how what you mean when you say soak 5 minutes. I'm still here. What does that mean? Soak 5 minutes and then move it to the washer. You have to ask the questions. That is your responsibility as a new tech to ask questions and to hold the line when you don't understand. You can't put that off on anybody else. They didn't give me enough time. You can the HR will back you up. HR will back you up when you say you have not had enough time to understand the process. They will back you up. Now, you can't take 4 years, people. Let's just be real. But basic sterile processing techniques, if you don't understand what it is you're doing, hold the line, stop the line, and say, I'm sorry, Jake. I don't understand. I know you showed me this twice, but I still don't understand what you mean when you say take this piece apart.
Yep.
I still don't understand because the day that you don't take it apart and it gets to a surgical case and there's uh, contamination in it, you're on your own.
That's right.
Jake is saying, well, no, Sharon never said she had any problems. When I showed her 2 times, she was ready to sign off on it. Her head was always going, yes, yes, I understand, I understand, I understand. She was always eager to say, I got it, I got it. Don't be the I got it. If you don't get it, say, I don't get it. Be willing to say, I don't understand. Do not put yourself in the situation to have been signed off on something that you truly didn't understand what you were doing. And for me as a manager, I will tell you, don't you agree that you know something that you don't know? Because once you sign off that you do know, you're being held responsible. You now are being held responsible for that process.
Um, I know in school, um, it was almost cool to be the person that was cool.
Mm,
Um, but truly successful people are what I call weirdos.
mm,
We're the ones. We're the no truly successful people. I won't say weirdos. We're the ones that went to the school of why.
mm-hmm,
Because truly successful people want to know why something is what it is, why it stands how it stands, why do we have to do it this way, why is this process this way, and it's incumbent upon you as a
mm-hmm,
technician, as a leader. It doesn't matter when you progress and promote up. You're in a new world, in a new field that you were not prior to. You can ask questions. It's okay to be wrong. It's
mm-hmm,
okay to provoke thought. It's okay to ask what does this mean and not assume. And this is what we actually teach when it comes to adult learning, SGG. As a teacher, we're trained as teachers that even when dealing with adults, as an adult teacher, what you do with a child is different than how you train an adult. Children are used to authoritative pedagogy style training, SGG. Pedagogy is when I'm teaching down. Because the child doesn't have context of life, context of work, context of whatever to add value to the teaching environment. They can just absorb. Okay. And what that brings is almost like a stalemate, a stagnant way of learning. Learning is actually supposed to bend and like almost like pulling, cause and opposite effect, like that Newton's law. Every action has a positive equal reaction. So as I'm learning more information, what should actually come out of you are more questions. And so if as a trainer, if I'm teaching, if I'm pulling, I'm saying, does everyone have it? And everyone's nodding. We're also taught as teachers and educators how to read the eyes and know when people are lying and when they don't have it, and how to pull more out of them to get engagement. I stopped by here to say this. Many organizations, I'm just going to say this, and I'm just on this rampage of this on all of our podcast platforms. Many organizations are failing simply because majority of their leaders, so I said many, not all, majority of the leaders that I have met in these many hospitals have never been trained on how to train. When you get into leadership, you go from the task in managing people. Okay. And when you're managing people, one of the biggest things or concepts or constructs you must master is your ability to train. And here's why this is a big deficit that many people have, especially in organizations and leaders. When you see an organization that is led by a leader who prides compliance and education over productivity and throughput, you will see an organization that has higher retention, that has openness and thought of making mistakes but fixing them, and people aren't scared to push themselves. An organization that prides itself on productivity and throughput, not training, development, education, that's an organization that experienced immense burnout, regardless of their ability to actually produce outcomes or get cases ready. Okay. And don't let me geek out on this. The point I'm making is this, is that in a lot of organizations, especially for you, the person who sent this letter in saying on what you were not trained on versus saying what you were not trained on, list the things that you cannot do.
Yes.
Okay. And then when you go back of the list of the things that you cannot do, if y'all didn't go over it during orientation, take that to your leader and say, here are the things that I'm seeing that y'all are putting me on that may have been assumed that I can do that I cannot do. Because what we all know is that just because I get certified doesn't mean I'm instrument certified.
That's right.
And I'm not an instrument specialist. I learned that vicariously through the experience of working with people whom I hope have expertise as being an instrument specialist. So you kind of just learn as an absorption type of way. But I'm speaking to the organizational leader or to the preceptor or to the trainer. You have to learn how to train. When you learn how to train, that's also going to prompt you to know that I can never train until I assess. You can't train anything new until you assess what they actually know how to do. So when you're doing orientation, just as much as you're talking, you're assessing.
Right.
And maybe assessing more, because I need to know really where you are. And it brings me to this, SGG, especially with organization building teams. You have to understand, and I say this in the latest episode in Bred to Lead, when I talk about building a championship team. As an organization, you only have so much money for the top spot. And it's just like a sports team, SGG. It's a sports team. Everyone has a salary cap. It doesn't matter how much more money you want to make. There's a salary cap. There's always a salary cap. That's what it is. And with this salary cap, you have a specific budget that you can pull from. The reason why in SPD, in some cases, you can pull from a premium budget It's because a lot of hospital systems actually share a premium traveler's budget pool, and they can pull from that budget. That is not the SPD's budget. That's like a general fund that they can pull from when you have shortages. I say
Mm-hmm.
that to say that if I am learning in an organization and I don't have this information, I cannot look and be like, well, this person's getting paid this and blah, blah, blah. I can't look left and I can't look right. I have to look at what I have. I have to take this to my leader and say, this is what I cannot do. Or during orientation, raise your hand and say what you have been trained to do in
Mm-hmm.
areas that you haven't been trained to do. So step one, what we do when you learn how to train SGG, you learn that the first step is actually to teach adults how to learn. And this is how you learn. When I come up to a concept that I'm not familiar with, and I know I cannot break it down to my 5-year-old or my 8-year-old to explain it in a way that they understand, I don't truly understand the concept. So it
Mm-hmm.
is okay for me to one, raise my hand or research more about that topic. It takes a little bit more time when you're grasping these things. So when you're in orientation, you've been hired already. Ask away.
Yes. 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 Yes.
When you get promoted, you've already been promoted. You won the job. Now ask for the resources, the development, and the training you need to do the job when you have the job. But hiding and saying we don't have this stuff or I haven't been properly trained. If they give you a task that you have not been trained on and you still do the task and you didn't raise a red flag, you are just as much in the wrong as the
Yes.
person that didn't do the training,
Yes.
that did the proverbial training. Go ahead,
Yeah.
SUG.
So I also want to say that one of the issues is that the trainer in our area sometimes isn't capable to train. It's I don't know what has happened. I don't want to go out on this limb, but we've got people who say I'm an educator and they can't even educate themselves, much less educate me. And what I found, and I am an approved instructor for the HSPA teaching course, is that we learned I first must know how to get in the building before I can train you on how to get
That's
in the
right.
building.
That's right.
And the fact that I don't know how to clean an instrument negates me training you because I'm going to teach you something bad.
That's
And
right. That's
so
right.
what we've had along the way is we don't always have the best people in the best positions in an effort to try to um, promote somebody or keep somebody. We say, well, Jake, I'm gonna make you the educator. Jake can't educate nobody. You constantly educating Jake.
That's right. That's right.
He's not educator material.
That's right.
But when you are the educator or the trainer, there are steps. That's why SOPs help us. There are steps you must be able to go through to teach the next person. You must know the steps so that you can perform the steps, so that you can show me the steps, so that I can learn. In this particular job, it is an on the job, basically training scenario. Each one has to teach one. You have to show me back how to take apart this instrument, not just talk me through it. You take it apart. No, that's not good enough. I need to see you take it apart. I need to see you put it back together. I need to see you wash it correctly. I need to see that you know this one soaks for 5 minutes. I need to see you do this. And after I see you do it, and then you can explain it to me. I come back and now I stand back and I say, okay, Jake, here's the tray. Go at it. I now get to evaluate you from back here to say, Jake, you missed some spots here. You missed some steps. Well, I thought, no, this isn't a thought process right here. This is not thoughting. This is actually doing. Some things we can think through. You can think how to take your mask off. And I take mine off this way, you take your, but the instrument has a distinct process. of how it is to be cleaned. And I need for you to do it the way I taught you. Now, there's more than one way. People say there's more than one way to do stuff. If you're working within the realm of the IFU, I agree. Maybe I flushed mine 22 times and the IFU just said flush. And you found that you can flush it once. The problem is Jake didn't flush it at all. He skipped that step completely. Therein lies our issue. So I have to be willing to make sure that I, the trainer, know what it is I am training on, and I know how to do it first. I can't teach anybody how to, I can a little bit. Just as a thought, I have a Range Rover, and you can't just take the battery out. You can't just say buy a battery and just throw it in there. It's not that kind of a car. You got to undo like 10 bolts. You got to lift up a flap. Then you got to move a wire to the left. You got to unattach some more wires. Listen, changing the battery in the Range Rover requires you go to the shop. Even AAA can't roll up and change the battery in the Range Rover. Too many steps that they haven't been taught. So for me to sit there with the AAA man, he said, well, I don't know. And he started messing around. We're going to have some problems. Because either he isn't going to undo all the bolts correctly, or he's not going to put. And then the bolts go in a certain way, Dr. Jake. You don't just screw them back in. Some go to the right, some go to the left, some clamp down. Listen, I know I just had the battery changed in that car. It was a mess. In the middle of the winter, I just thought, just give me a battery. The man was like, ma'am.
I can't just give you a battery. That's right.
And he went to try to charge it, and even trying to charge it was a problem because we still had to unbolt some bolts. But he didn't know that when he walked up to that car. Now, me, I didn't know it either, but I'm standing there looking, and I done pulled out the little book. See, I believe in pulling out the instructions for use.
That's right.
I pulled out the manual and said, well, it says here, these bolts up here need to come off. He's like, oh, yeah. So training is not just saying I've done it for 10 years, because you may have been doing it wrong.
Come on.
You may have been doing it wrong. And now you're going to teach another generation wrong. So I want to put out there into the atmosphere, when you are selecting your trainers, your preceptors, make sure you have evaluated them. Do they know what they're absolutely positively doing? Do they understand the IFU? And we can't remember everything, team members, but you have to be willing to go, and Dr. Jake said it, go and read something yourself. I haven't done this trade for 20 years. I'm going to have to do some studies. I can't train anybody on how to put this tray together until I go back and learn the instruments myself, until I go back and see what it says about putting it together. Do we take anything apart? So there are times when you have to be willing to, as a trainer, to re-educate yourself.
That's right.
And we used to do that. And I hate saying in the olden days, my OR text with the day before, everybody would pull books off the shelf and see what the case was tomorrow. And down in SPD, we would be trying to see what instruments do you really need, because we didn't want to, going back to the first question, have a stat problem in the morning at 7:30. So we prepared the day before. It's all about management of time, skill. And if you are in the position where you don't know how to do something, stop it when you're in the training mode. Say, as Dr. Jake said, raise your hand and say, I don't know. I don't understand. I know you took me through this, Sharon, and you said it, but I really didn't understand what you said. Could you please show me again? Because my job as the trainer is to be sure that when I sign you off, that you know what you know that you should know. And I should be able to stand behind you and say, yes, Jake does how to put that tray together. Jake does know how to run that machine. How do you know? I trained him. I watched him more than, I didn't do a one-time watch.
That's right.
I worked with Jake on this many times. He did this for me 5, 6, 7 times.
That's right.
And I checked him off each time, and he knows what he's doing.
That's right.
You cannot train anybody a process one time. You cannot. You've got to give me the ability to do it and to come back and do it again. I used to tell people that didn't like to do certain trays, every time you see that tray, you put it on your station until you feel comfortable enough that when you see the tray, you don't go, oh my God, there's that tray. You go to my station, because I know how to do this. You know, we don't want you doing things with your eyes closed, but you almost feel like you could close your eyes and put it together. That's how comfortable you are in processing that particular tray because you have done it enough. It's all about repetition. We are in a department of a lot of repetition. Nothing changes. Clean is clean is clean is clean. Dirty doesn't come into it. It's got to be clean on this side. So for the person that wrote that in, you have to be willing to accept the consequences for your actions. If you did not make sure before you signed off or got signed off on in orientation on a competency that you knew what you were doing. Take the time. In SPD, we all know now it takes more than 2 weeks to train somebody. It almost takes a year for you to be comfortable enough to stand on your own. And in knowing that, I'm willing to train you because I want you to do it right. I don't want you impacting the patient's care. And I don't want the OR sending trays back just because you didn't put them up correctly. That's wasting time and money. And so I would rather spend the time making sure that you were comfortable and competent, the word being competent, to put the tray together, to clean the instruments. I want you to be competent, and I want you to feel that you are competent before I let you go. But the only person that knows if they're truly competent is you. This is on your shoulders.
And I want to say this. The best position to be in, no matter what position you're in, from Tech 1 to CEO, is the inquisitive position. Always open, always questioning, and always wanting to gather understanding. It just is. If I'm doing a method one way, and I've been doing it one way, and someone comes in and say, I do a method like SGG said, I flush 22 times, and you flush once. An inquisitive person would say, what prompted you to flush 22 times? And SGG says, hey, I come from a facility that what we realized was one flush wasn't enough. And IFU gives you bare minimum. But when we flush on the 22nd time, we saw that all residue came out. That's why I do 22. Just stopping and asking the question, what prompted you to do this? Even when you're course correcting as a trainer, it's another thing with dealing with adults. You don't come in, crash course, and this is how you do it. Can you walk me through what prompted you to process that way?
Yes.
It's only two things going to happen. One, they're going to let you know, I just skipped a step. I know what to do. Or two, they're going to walk you through and give you reasoning why they made whatever provision that they made. From there, you coach. You coach there. You don't coach coming down. And so that, you know, we'll spend more time on that. SGG, I'm going to call you after this. We can't let them know what we're doing. We can't let them know what we're doing until it's done. Okay. But we are working on something that is going to be our gift as a part of Operation 44 and our willingness to be a part of the solution of building the bridge, that 44-year gap of true SPD leadership development that we have been missing. And so for some of you all that have been watching the show SPD911, I just want to say thank you, because every week we get a little bit of the golden nuggets. Talk to y'all later. This show is all about tracking the toughest challenges in sterile processing. Is that we live in a world where shadowing is considered training.
SPD911, we stand together.
You're not successful if you work in a 9 to 5. Like,